Please say hello. We're doing Lunchtime Live. This is Tuesday Lunchtime Live instead of my usual Thursday Lunchtime Live. And what I'm doing today, as you can see, is an underpainting. And I just wanted to show you and walk through a few things about the underpainting, considering last week in Key Fundamentals of Painting, we looked at composition, we looked at light, and then at colour. So, major thing fall down, but you know, it didn't break. Okay, so who's that? Oh, Gordon. So it's just you saw the thing crashing. Anyway, yeah, what can you do? All right. So what I wanted to show you about the underpainting, now that I go back before the loud explosion, is about the light in it. So the composition I have chosen today has got green bushes with some light coming through, and they're all in very clean colours, but I have some gum leaves popping forward. And that's this arrangement of gum leaves as they occur in nature. And they're that really glaucous blue-green. So when I get to colour, which won't be today, obviously, then you'll see I'm creating contrast, not only between the light and dark, but I'm creating contrast between the kind of colour that I use, because I'll have less intense colour in the background and I'll use more intense colour when we come forward. Then you'll be able to see in this arrangement also, as it comes together, which you can't see much of yet, that sometimes there is light. I'm about to put the dark in this leaf. So sometimes it's really in the bright light, and at other times it's in shadow. So again, I've used difference. Remember last week in Key Fundamentals of Painting, I was talking about how our brain likes pattern, it likes to see things the same to make us comfortable, so we're not accessing the prefrontal cortex. However, when something is different, that's what grabs our attention. So as artists, once we know that little bit of neuroscience about the brain, we can start bringing that into play to help us make decisions about our work. Oh, let me have a look. Hello, Heather. Hi, Gordon. Okay, so we know that we're looking for difference, we're looking for contrast. So even in these simple gum leaves, because this is a super simple composition, if you like, just having a far off background and then the close in leaves that will make sense soon as I keep painting. But then I've used the way the shadow and light fall to create the contrast and the interest, because the leaves themselves are very simple and by that very nature very restful, because we recognize them and understand what they should be doing in a composition. So what else can I tell you? Please ask me questions as I go. Can I see them there? Oh, and I will try to turn around here and turn around there to you and see if we can do this. And I've even got myself a whiteboard to make notes to think of. Oh, and I tell you what one of them was. I started this background yesterday afternoon and I wanted to get a bit more done this morning. So I got going on a leaf and then got interrupted. So in How to Paint with Acrylics, we really focus on a step-by-step process. And I have concentration difficulties, and once I could bring in a process like that, it really, really helped me. because you need, when you're painting, to be able to get on with life. And so you need a process that allows you, that kind of does a lot of the grunt work, the old brain, the comfortable part of the brain. If it knows we're following a step-by-step process, then we make things easier. So the reason I am painting in black and white is because in my process I try to reduce the number of decisions I'm making at any one time. So first I made the decision about the composition and drew the line, and now I'm making the decisions about just about the light and dark. I'm not bringing colour into it yet, and this is a really big deal. You'll learn if you do it in terms of, once you reduce the load on your brain, the decisions that you've got to make, because there's still a hell of a lot of decisions to make, but by reducing those into one plane, because of the mono, just the light and dark, then I make that easier. And what that allows is that the rest of my brain and the thinking part of my brain is now released from having to hold certain things in the mind, ready to use them. I'm not using up that energy. I'm able to just go with the flow, and if I need to stop, I can stop and make a little note of what I need to come back to, and then just hook straight back in when I return. Very different than if you were, particularly if you were painting something just out of your head, then there's a whole lot of things to juggle at once. The colours and the shapes and trying to get them all to work. And that's a dynamic process that you must stay in for days or weeks or however long it takes. So this kind of process your brain engages with in a very different way. So if you have concentration difficulties like me, then it actually makes all kinds of things possible that weren't possible before. So concentration, yep, Heather. That's right, you might have faked out already. We've only been going for a couple of minutes. But that's okay, because it's on video and you can look at it again later. How much of your course could be helpful for other kinds of painting beside acrylics? Oh, thank you, Gordon. That anything really. In terms of process, I mean, I just didn't bring oils into it, again, because I didn't want to confuse things. I just kept things simple to one area and one domain to make it easier for the group and people to narrow down exactly what they want to do. But the principles, yes, are the same. I would use the same principles and do an underpainting if I were painting portraits. And also watercolor, the principles are the same, but there's a whole lot in watercolor about preparing the paper, preparing what you're using. What I'm doing is using the underpainting as a treatment for the canvas. So this first layer of paint, so rather than doing gesso layers, I'm doing black and white layers. So there's difference in terms of surfaces. And in watercolors, there's a lot to learn about loading your brush, and there's technical things to learn. But the sequence and breaking things down is really very, very similar, and just the same if it were oils. Thank you for that. Good question. Okay, so let's see where I was. Now you see on my messy palette, it looks just the same as the painting. And something too about having such a yucky looking underpainting is that when we're going in a process, we already know it's okay. It can look really crappy at this stage because I know what I'm doing, I know where I'm going, and I know what happens next. So that is the point at which a lot of people give up. I did want to address today people's objections to painting, to taking another step. Because some people don't, oh, I'm not good enough. But just think, often when you go to a gallery, even the big state galleries, sometimes you will see work in any sort of gallery or on a wall that you think, yeah, I could do that. Now, I think the difference between that person and us when we're looking at a painting that way is simply that they did it. They just had the confidence. So confidence is absolutely critical. And again, a step-by-step process is there to keep your confidence buoyant and keep that going all the way through. Because we need to think, yeah, I've got this, I can keep going. Because it is, again, due to the way our brain works, if something doesn't, look right, we might just back out and say, no, too hard, too much work to be able to make that happen. I haven't got the resources. I better just stop that and do something else. So we need that process to help us stay with it. Really, as a lot of people say, the difference between the amateur and the professional is when the amateur sees a yucky looking painting that they're making, they might go, well, yeah, this is working. Let's, I'm out of here. Let's go do something else. But the professional knows, no, this is part of the process. So that's a really important thing to remember as well when you're looking at something looking yucky along the way. And that's why I really work on a careful step-by-step process to just keep you in the flow, keep you on track, so that whether it's your confidence, whether it's the fact that you have to pick the kids up from school, whatever it is that interrupts you, you can actually hook back in, because within that process is like a marker of where you left off, and this is what has to be done next. So let's go back to my marker, which is the leaf I'm on. Let's see if I can show you what I'm up to now. Oh no, I want to lighten that up a bit more. Again, here's my messy palette, just looks like the painting at this stage. This leaf here is in not the deepest shadow, but some. But it still has light hitting it on the edges. And the leaf behind it is quite a bit darker. So I'm really just, in terms of, like what we were talking about last week, I'm really just dealing with light right now. Which are the lighter or darker leaves? Is it the background, the darkest part, which it is in here? And I do tend to start with the darkest and work towards the lightest. Now this leaf is even darker down here. At this stage, I'm just using the acrylic paints and water. I'm not adding in any medium at this stage. And I'm just giving that first layer of paint onto the canvas. And when I make the second layer of paint, it will go on easier. Now I think I said when I was doing the light module last week, I mentioned Robin Ely and his work. I don't know if you went and had a look in his April 17 Instagram feed. There is a time-lapse video of him doing an underpainting, and this is Robin is somebody who paints for 11 hours a day. All of his work is sold. The only one of his paintings he has is one of that his mother owns, like in the family. Everything is just, sold before he's done. He is known as the human photocopier. He's fantastic. He does an underpainting. The only reason he doesn't sometimes now is because of Instagram, because it looks better when you're doing live painting to go straight into colour. But he makes the point, if you watch that little video, that it is much easier for him. He's got a really big canvas, and to be doing the underpainting where you've only got the tones or the values to worry about instead of colour as well, because colour is going to be affected by the white canvas and more difficult to do. So people, the most experienced professionals, still use this simple kind of tool to be able to bring their work to life. So that's one of the reasons we use in How to Paint with Acrylics and underpainting, because it really sets us up. We've made the difficult decisions, and everything becomes easier because of that. And once things are easier, then our confidence remains buoyant. And as I've said, I really think that is the difference between people who just go ahead and do it and those who, think, I can't make something great, so they stop there. So don't let that trip you up. Find ways around it. There are ways around it. So that's why we look at all of that in How to Paint with Acrylics. There's been a bit of dripping while I've turned my back here. Now this is a very loose underpainting. As you can see, pretty messy. But I don't really mind about that at the moment, because it's not a really detailed painting like a portrait would be. that has all little facial details and things. This is some lovely great big gum leaves, and stay with me during the week and I'll do some more live lunchtimes and you'll see it progress and see what I'm talking about making something that has intensity up in the leaves, in the colour up the front, and in the background really quite different colours, and no definite forms and shapes. So all of those things help us create, as I talked about last week, because we're taking a 2D surface and making a 3D painting or image from that. We have tools that we can use both with form and the sharpness of a line, with colour, with the intensity or not intensity. So all of these tools help us create depth within what we're doing. Just as the photographer would see depth of field, we actually create that ourselves. And there are, if we've got rules of thumb in our mind, they can help us and not just help us create the depth, but help us problem solve when we look at it and think, I don't know if that's coming together. So yes, things are still looking, just as messy, and I'm talking more than I'm painting, but during the week it will come together. Now, am I in the way? If you have any questions, let me know. This leaf again is partially in the shadow and partially in the light. So this is the shadow part, and little light parts peeking out the top. And I'll get my brush strokes doing what the veins do. Which doesn't always work, but we can do that today. No questions? Oh, we've got dripping going on while I'm turning my back chatting to you. Well, that's a good thing about acrylics, and you just get some rag and tidy that up. It's not, it's not going to be the end of the world. Whereas if it was watercolour, we'd be stuck. Okay, let's have a look here at this nice one. See if I can get anything white out of my messy palette. So some of the leaves are very obviously having light hit them. The light is coming from the other side there. And okay. And this is a bit lighter here, where this part of this leaf is in the light, but there's some other little new growth there too. It all may not really be making sense, but it will. Just have to get a bit more white, excuse me. One of the things I love about the underpainting too is I don't have to be as needful of needful. It's not really a word. I don't need the daylight so much, right? So sometimes these are things I can do at night, or when I'm not really concentrating as much. So I do love that. That I have a little bit more flexibility because it's easier because there's not as many decisions. I really am just thinking about value, just the tone and form. And these ones are right out in the light. And you will see them by later in the week actually colour up, and it'll all make sense. But I want to show it to you when it doesn't make sense. I want to show it to you when it just looks like a big mess. Because it has form to me, I know where I'm going, but I just wanted you to see that, so you see the progress through the week into a painting that makes a little bit more sense. So do you have any more questions? We're coming up to our half hour. Is there anything more I can tell you? I just want you to be conscious of, I guess, reducing the number of decisions that we have to make. And that's how I'm able to paint, because I reduced that number of decisions. So I don't have to get overwhelmed by decision making, particularly when the rest of life is going on. The neighbours actually had an earth mover today. I feel that there's superheroes with super strengths. Mine is I attract men with power tools. And it doesn't matter what I'm doing. If I'm videoing and painting, there will be some, they're just attracted to me. So when I try and do this sort of thing as well, there's just extra decisions. Life is full of the unexpected. That's why it's fun and interesting, but also it can use up all our resources. So when we've got a step-by-step process, it makes everything doable and realizable, and makes us feel more comfortable so we can be more confident. So I hope that gives you a little bit more insight into why I do things the way I do. And thank you, Heather. I'm glad. Oh, it's restful watching me. Oh, that's nice. Does this take the place of a thumbnail sketch? Menchie, thank you for that question. Thumbnail sketch. So I actually did a drawing before I began, and I probably don't really do what's called the thumbnail sketch in that sense. So I'm not beginning just by sketching something with brush and paint on the canvas. I have actually done a line drawing, and then I am focusing just on the mono, just dealing with the light and shadow, not colour. And I do know, and I'll talk about it in How to Paint with Acrylics, the reason, and when we first see the underpainting come up historically, was when the great masters in the Renaissance started to do these big paintings, and paintings of royalty and the court, and all of, those ones with all the people and dogs and babies and everybody in there. During this time, they'd start the painting. They're on massive, wall size, and along the process, somebody falls out of favour with the Duke or the King or whoever it is, and no, take them out of the painting. Get rid of that one. And as you know, if you're an artist, you can't just stick a pop pump in there or something. It just changes the composition. So I have already thought through my composition before I've begun, and then I bring it on here. Now with these great masters, the old masters, what they started doing to keep their patrons happy was they started doing the underpainting. So they painted all the characters in and said, are you happy with that? Before they began the painstaking work of the beautiful colour. And so that apparently was the beginning of the underpainting. So it is different than the thumbnail sketch. It is, in my case, I've done a drawing first, and then I'm putting in there'll be more detail as we go. So if I move on to colour when you're not looking, I will post the progress to get there so you can see it. But really, if I was doing an underpainting for a face, for a portrait, I would do all the detail. And then I would have already thought through all the decisions. But only that set of decisions, not the which red to use as well, because that's another whole level. So we're trying to make things simpler and simpler. The thumbnail sketch is a different kind of building process, and there's still many layers of decision that go on at the same time, because it's not putting in, the underpainting does put in detail. So I think that answers you, Menchie. I hope so. There's always a delay between when you write a question and when I see it. But hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so I'll keep going during the week. I hope you can join me again. If you have any other questions, let me know, or even, post them in the feed later. I was going to close down the KFP, Key Fundamentals of Painting group, but I've left it open for the week, so you can see me do some live painting and think through and apply those lessons from last week. Okay, thank you, Menchie. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Gordon. Thanks, everyone, for coming, and I'll catch you during the week. Bye.